Welcome back to another episode of the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. This is going to be the first episode that we are doing together for 2024. It is a new year. If you listen to the podcast, last week was our first episode back, but it was a solo episode that Ashley did. It was a mindset with Ashley, all about auditing your 2023 so you can have a better 2024. And then we thought that would kind of lead into this episode, which is going to be how to start 2024 on the right foot, get you thinking about how can you make this year even better than it was last year. So the first thing we have is definitely take a look back at your 2023 numbers. I think that is really important. We get caught up, especially since the end of the year is always Q4. It's really busy. We've got the holidays. You're probably spending time with family. You're maybe going on vacation. Maybe you're out of town. And it gets so busy to where when 2024 hits, it's sometimes hard to get back into the groove. But one of the things you should do before you even think about doing anything is look back on 2023. And a lot of people don't take the chance and the opportunity to look at their numbers. If you sell on eBay, Amazon, even Poshmark and Mercari, all of these platforms have reports that you can access. eBay especially, you can go in and you can filter last year. It will compare, 2023 to 2022. You can do it starting this year. You can do it with a specific custom range. Maybe you're going to compare your December of 2023 to the month before, see how well you did between November and December. They give you access to those reports, but also they break down things for you. You get to see what were your sales, what were your returns, how much did you pay in shipping, and the most important, what are you paying in fees on the platform? Maybe you're selling on eBay and you just have a starter store and you look and you learn you paid so much in fees that it makes sense for you to now for 2024 upgrade to a basic store where you're going to save a certain percentage on final value fees, and it's really going to save you money in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important to we talk about it all the time though, knowing your numbers. It's hard to know where you want to go if you don't know what you've done in the past. And there's so many resellers that they don't know their metrics. They don't know what they did last year. They have no idea how much money they made. They have no idea how much of it was profit. They have no idea how much they spent on inventory. And how can you set realistic goals for yourself going forward if you have no idea where you are right now or where you were last year? So knowing that stuff is if you're taking reselling seriously, it's imperative. So don't let 2024 get too far, don't let it sneak up on you. And then all of a sudden it's March and you're like, well, crap, I haven't done any of this. And I'm just going to kind of fly by the seat of my pants again, because you're going to end up in, the same predicament that you're in now, not knowing where you were, where you are, where you're going. The next thing that we have is to make sure that you're creating a plan for your business, or a business plan, if you will. You need to know, especially if you are in a place where you're just starting, or maybe you're taking this opportunity to kind of restructure your business a little bit, you need to think about exactly what you want to sell. If you're an everything seller, that's fine, but maybe you want to niche down a little bit. This is a great time to start doing that, learning about new niches. And then also, let's say you're going to be focusing a little bit more on something like jewelry this coming year. Where are you going to sell that jewelry? Where's the best platform or what is the best platform for you? So maybe, Poshmark with their shipping charges isn't the best platform, but something like Etsy might be, really learning about your niche, the ins and outs of your customer, identifying your customer, your target markets, all of that stuff.
What I would add is if you are looking to sell, let's say you want to switch from doing thrift stores, because I know a lot of people are struggling to find good inventory with thrift stores. So maybe starting this year, they want to kind of transition to maybe retail arbitrage and go to retail stores. or maybe look at online arbitrage or wholesale. Those will dictate kind of where you're going to sell your items, what's your customer base. Yes, you can sell that stuff on, let's say eBay and in Poshmark, like people will buy brand new items on those platforms, but maybe Amazon's going to be a platform that you introduce for this year based on what you plan on selling. And a business plan is really just kind of it's an outline. Like, what does your year look like? There's so much you can include in the business plan, but really it's kind of a guide. I mean, think about it. Reselling it's an online business. If you think about other stores like Walmart, they're not going to just enter 2024 with no goals or no plan of, what does their business look like? You don't have to be this big seller. You could be a smaller seller. You could be a hobby seller just starting out, but you do need to think about these things and have a plan. Another thing would be for the business plan, create your monthly and your yearly goals. One big thing is, how many are you listing per month? How many do you want to list per month? Do you have a goal for the year? Like, by the time this year's up, I want to have 2,000 listings active. You have to have goals, but you also have to have realistic goals. If you look back on 2023 and you were only listing 25 items a month, then maybe having a goal of 200 to 300 items a month is not realistic, because you don't have the time or you don't have the resources to meet that goal. So that's another thing to consider when you're doing your business plan, is just looking at last year, but also setting the goals that you can realistically meet.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people have a profit number in mind. Like, they want to profit, $50,000 or $100,000 from their reselling business this year. And that's great in theory, but you kind of touched on it. You can sort of reverse engineer that big goal and break it down. So if you want to profit, let's say $50,000, you need to know, again, going back to your first point, what you did last year and what your ASP was and your sell-through rate. And then what you need to do going forward. So if your average sales price, your ASP was $15 versus, $30, you're going to need to source and list a lot different if your ASP is 15 versus 30 to hit that $50,000. So that's why it's so important. All of this is kind of like connected. You need to know your numbers to know where you're going to hit those goals.
All right. The next thing we have is looking back and what came easy for you last year? What parts of the business did you struggle with? And really, I would say not only looking back, but reflecting, I think, is a good word and something that you should do. I like to reflect on things I've done in the past. Like, what did I do? What was the outcome? Was it something that was positive? Was it something that was negative? Did I struggle? Did I have a lot of success? Dissecting your business, looking at the parts that worked, looking at the parts that didn't work, being honest with yourself too. If you had that goal last year of trying to get to 2,000 listings and you didn't meet that, why did you not meet that? Was that just too difficult for you? Was it something that you just can't do? Like I said before, you don't have the time to be listing that much, or maybe you didn't have the sourcing means. You weren't finding enough items when you went out sourcing, or maybe you weren't spending enough time sourcing. So really being realistic, because if you can figure out what you need to do differently this year, you have an entire year to do it and to meet those goals. You could really transform in the next 52 weeks, but you have to figure out, what are you going to focus on? If you want to focus on improving your profits, like you said, you need to focus on sourcing better items that are going to have a higher sale price, average sale price. That's going to increase your profits, because if you're outsourcing, let's say that your average sourcing price for items are $5. If you're only selling them for $15, $20, you're not going to be making as much of a profit unless you find items that are going to be selling for $30, $50, $100. That profit's going to really increase. So you're going to be making more and your average sale price is going to be higher as well.
We did touch a lot on this in the episode that I did about like the auditing your 2023. So if you haven't listened to that, definitely go back through. There's a couple like exercises that you can do. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I talk about it kind of like reviewing like tape So if you were ever in sports, like if you played football or soccer, maybe they even do it for baseball, I'm not sure, but they, record your games and your practices, and then you kind of watch the film back to see where you struggled, where your team struggled, what you did well, and kind of, make changes based on this film. So my analogy in that last episode was playing back your last year, like you're watching the tape or watching film of, the team, right? Like what you did well, and what you struggled with. So that's kind of where, I was going with that. The next thing is to make sure that you have your accounting set up properly for the year ahead. This is something that a lot of resellers kind of slack on. Not going to give like straight up accounting advice, of course, that you need like a CPA for, to get professional advice, but you should be gathering any of like the tax documents that you need, keeping track of your 1099s, of course, your monthly expenses, what those expenses are. You can, refer to your accountant to find out what you need to keep track of, cost of goods, sales, mileage, any expenses that you paid out for your business, keep those receipts, your internet, home office, if it applies, shipping supplies, software, guides, courses that you paid to better your business, monthly memberships, all that stuff you should be keeping really good track of. As far as your expenses, so you want to make sure that you're tracking your inventory and your profits from your sales, accounting software like My Reseller Genie. They also, I don't know if you guys follow them on Instagram, but they did just announce that they are fully integrated with Poshmark now. So if you are solely a Poshmark seller, that's really good news for everyone. We do have a discount code that they were very nice to give to us. And that discount code, if you want to check them out, is Daycheck, and it's in all caps. We did do an interview with them a while back. If you haven't listened to that, definitely go back and listen to it. It was a great one. We should probably have them back on because they've made so many updates and so many changes to their business. It would be great to kind of go over that and see what's new with them.
So the My Reseller Genie, before they just had eBay integration. And what that means is you can sync your eBay account to their software. So it's all web-based, it's cloud-based. So you would log into myresellergenie.com and then you would connect your eBay account and then it would pull the sales directly from there. So now that it's Poshmark integration, it does the same thing with Posh. You can go in and you can link your account and it will actually pull your sales reports. And My Reseller Genie is good if you need a place to track everything you need for bookkeeping, which, you can look at your sales, you can put in your cost of goods, you can add any expenses that you have, like monthly. They've really come a long way with their software. It was started by a husband and wife, Paul and Faith. Faith is a reseller. Paul is on the accounting side. So they really know what you're going to need. And even if you're going to do your taxes yourself, that's fine. You don't have to hire a bookkeeper or CPA. It's just good to have this in one spot. They already have the software that you can easily see what you're profiting, easily see what you're spending in monthly expenses. They also have a mileage area, and it's really just an online software that you can use to really evaluate your business and look at all your numbers. But also Mark II, who is the CPA that we use, is very knowledgeable. He used to be an online seller himself, but he's also a CPA, which I feel like is always the best of both worlds because they truly understand what we need as resellers. This episode's going to come out. It's Friday. So starting on Monday, there's going to be a 2-day free event. It doesn't cost anything. It's a virtual event, but there's going to be other guest speakers. There's going to be a Q&A section where you can ask any questions that you have about reselling. I think this would be really good if you do your taxes by yourself, because you might learn something that you might not be tracking that you probably should. But it's going to be free. They're going to do giveaways, and I'll leave the link to that down below.
And who's hosting that? Is it Mark?
Yeah, Mark is going to be hosting it. So it's something that he's putting on, just kind of a kickoff to 2024. I mean, if you have an LLC, taxes are going to be due in March. And then if you don't have an LLC and you are doing the taxes yourself and you have to file your personal taxes, That'll be in April. So, I mean, before we know it, tax season is right around the corner, which I strongly dislike taxes. But after having Mark as our CPA last year, I feel like I'm a lot more at ease with taxes. I'm not as intimidated. I know exactly for this year what I need to track, what I don't need to track. And I think the virtual event, it's 2 days. It's something that would be very valuable if you don't know a lot about bookkeeping. And it's okay because it's something that we just don't know a lot about. I'm in my early 40s and I will be the first to say, I don't know a lot about taxes, but that's okay. That's why I hire a professional to do it because I don't want to have to learn that stuff.
You know, the other day I was doom scrolling on Instagram and I saw this meme that's very applicable to this whole conversation. It was, student, like the student is speaking. Could you teach us more about taxes? Gym teacher. No, square dance. Like, why didn't they teach us stuff that we really needed to know? But we were doing stuff like square dancing and playing with that dang parachute in gym class. And you know what I mean? Like just stuff that, I don't know, whatever. It must be like, I don't know if they still do that now in school, but I went to school, I graduated in 2004. So I was born in the mid 80s, 85. And that was very much a thing when I went to school. I don't know if it was for you too, but we focused a lot on square dancing for some reason. Maybe it was just
we did. Yeah. I was 1999. That was when I graduated. Same with Casey. Casey, they did, he said they learned pickleball in high school. We never had pickleball. He only had 37 or 38 people in his graduating class. I had 297. I went to a big high school in Rockford, Illinois. But yeah, I mean, I look back and I remember one class, and it had to have been economics, where we went over a budget and we maybe spent like a week on it. And we had to budget like what an apartment would be and utilities and things like that. But taxes, I'm just like, that's what old people do. Like old people worry about taxes. I don't have to worry about that. I'm 16 years old. Why would I need to worry about that?
Right. That's what my parents do. And we never did any of that. We didn't do anything about taxes, nothing about budgeting. I do remember in our government and economics class, we briefly touched on the stock market and we had like fake money that we could invest. Mm-hmm. So all quarter, or all semester or whatever, we had to monitor our stocks and like track our profits. And that was kind of cool. And then at the end, whoever like made the most amount of money, like they won something. I forget what they won, but that was interesting. But like, that's the only like real life applicable thing that I remember learning in high school. And I think I took that class as a junior. It was either when I was a junior or a senior, but we never touched on taxes. We never learned how to balance a checkbook, like none of that stuff. So very interesting. But now there's so much information out there. Going back to the virtual event, we are so lucky that the internet has done what it's done in our lifetime and that there's just so much free information out there at our fingertips. So we are lucky in that sense, I suppose. All right. Making sure that you have the right tools for your business for the upcoming year is going to be very important as well. We have talked about this to the point of beating a dead horse, but we're going to talk about it again because we feel so strongly and so passionately about it. If you are still manually sharing your Poshmark closet, please stop right now. Go look up Poshmark VA or One Shop or something like that. We do, I think, have a Poshmark VA code that's in our description that'll get you, I think it's like a free trial. You can try it out. It is so easy to connect to your Poshmark. They can't steal any of your information. They can't take the money out of your account. It's not like that. Go check. It's just a Google Chrome extension. Go check it out. See if it helps you. See if you like it. It's going to make your life so much easier if you're still manually sharing your listings. We did have a question in our group. I believe it was the other day. Someone asked like how many listings we recommended hiring out help, like a Poshmark VA situation to help share your listings. And I would, personally, I would do it right away. Of course, if you have like 5 listings, you probably don't need the assistance. You can share 5 listings 100 times a day and it's really not taking that much time. But I would say even if you have like 20 or more, setting it up so you can get used to the product, see if you like it. If you don't like it, you can switch to something else that works better for you. The goal, of course, is to continually continually list, right? And building your closet, building up your listings. So you're hopefully not going to be sitting at that 20 spot of listings for very long. Eventually it's going to bump up to 50 and then bump up to 100. So I think the sooner you can do it, the better for you, because your time is worth so much more than sitting there manually sharing your listings, hitting that one button over and over and over again. You could be outsourcing, you could be listing new inventory, you could be cross-posting. There's so many things that you could be doing with that time instead. So that's something that we wanted to touch on one more time, just for the kids in the back, just in case there's people out there that haven't done it yet.
Well, and I want to share. So, if you've been listening to the podcast, I last year was my first full year on Poshmark. Mm-hmm. And I did use Poshmark VA because there was no way I was going to be able to have that many listings that I had cross-posted from eBay to Poshmark and share all of them. But to give you an idea, right now I'm Posh Ambassador 2, so it didn't take me long to meet those goals to get that. And we've talked about it before. I don't think it's going to truly help. It doesn't help you make more sales, but it gives buyers a better, comfort knowing that, oh, I'm buying from somebody who's a Posh 2 ambassador. But I have 44,000 shares. I have 97,000 followers and I'm following 39,000 people. So it really helped me get those metrics faster than if I would have been just sitting there. And I ended Poshmark VA at the end of last year, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. And there's a good reason why I did that. But I wanted to see how it was to share my own closet because I started off with that. That's what I started with. As soon as I listed my first item on Posh, I hooked that up. But it was very time consuming and I found myself not remembering to do it every single day, having to add that daily task to everything else I was doing. And it's like, why am I doing that to myself when something else can do it? And yes, I have to pay for it, but it's money well spent because the time, like you said, the time that it took me to share all my items or send offers or follow people, whatever you're doing, whatever you're using it for, because it has a lot of features, I could have been listing another 5 items or 10 items in that length of time that it took me to personally, manually share. So I think that's one thing, if you're listening, really think of, do you have the time to do that? And are you going to remember to do that every single day? Because you do need to do it every single day.
So some of the other tools that we wanted to touch on really quick is, this is one I think directed at me. If you have a hard time finding boxes, the right size to ship your oddly sized items in, that's definitely me. And you're constantly, Frankensteining boxes together, you need a box resizer. So as soon as we're done recording, I guess I'm going to bite the bullet and order one because they're like a couple dollars and it makes your life a lot easier. Or buy specific size boxes if you find yourself using the same size over and over again and they make one in that size. If you are wanting to sell on various platforms, maybe you should be looking into a cross-listing service like Vendoo, List Perfectly, Flip, whatever, whatever floats your boat, whatever you find easiest to use, that might be something that will help your business this year. If your photos are something that you struggle with, definitely check out the Facebook group. It's always linked below. We just ask that you answer a couple questions and just agree to the group rules real quick, and we'll let you in the group. We had a post last week where a bunch of people shared their photo setup, and there's definitely some interesting ones in there, stuff that I've never thought of before. Some of those things I might implement myself because old lady back. We're not aging backwards, that's for sure. And my back is not what it used to be. So the less I need to bend over my photo setup, the better. And another tool that I highly recommend is Photo Room. It's an app that you can download. I downloaded it years and years and years ago. So I pay, I want to say it's once a year. I forget the cost. It is a little bit pricey if you pay ahead for the year. I think it's like $50 or $70 or something like that. But it will let you batch edit photos and remove the background. It's a lot more responsive, I would say, than the eBay background removal tool. And you can do, I forget how many, you can edit up all at the same time. I think it's like 35 or 45 pictures at once or something like that. I would have to look, but it's very helpful. Again, I've used it for years. It does a great job. And it also removes the watermark. So that's one other thing that I wanted to touch on really quick. If you're using a tool like that to remove the background, please don't post the pictures with the watermark in it.
I see that all the time on eBay.
Yeah. So just pay to, have the watermark removed. It's worth it. And again, it's something that you can write off for your business come tax time. And it's going to make your life a lot easier than if you have to go in and edit one picture at a time every single time you go to, edit pictures. So Photoroom is a great app to use. One other tool, it's not really a tool, it's like a product, but I've been using it for years and I don't think I've ever mentioned it, but it's the Downy wrinkle release spray. When I first got big into selling clothes, when I was living in my little teeny tiny apartment and doing a lot of garage sales and stuff, I came across this full size stand steamer, like a clothing steamer. And I used that thing until it literally broke down and stopped working. It was all corroded inside. I don't know how old it was. I bought it and used it for, I would say probably 2 years. And I used the crap out of that thing. So it was I would say it's probably a $200 or $300 steamer. It was a Mac Daddy one. So at that point, I'm I don't really want to spend another $200-$300 on a brand new steamer. And I kept looking for them in garage sales. Couldn't really find one. So I found in Target one day this Downy brand wrinkle release spray. So you just spray it on the clothes, kind of shake it out a little bit. It shakes out all the wrinkles. It does, it might be a little bit damp, so you just have to hang it so it'll dry, air dry for a few minutes. But that stuff takes out wrinkles from pretty much everything. We took it on vacation with us, along with a little travel handheld steamer. And between those two things, we didn't have any wrinkles. It was lovely. So I've got a big bottle of it upstairs where I take pictures. And anytime I know that I'm going to be doing t-shirts or something like that, I'll go ahead and spray a couple of them ahead and then hang them up so they dry, all the wrinkles fall. And if you don't want to, if you just need it quick, you don't want to go ahead and fill the steamer and go through that whole dance. It's kind of a cool thing to have just for a quick wrinkle release. So that's my spiel on that.
Does it smell at all when you spray it?
It does have a light scent, but I can't smell it on the clothes after I spray it. So once it's dry and aired out a little bit, I don't smell it at all. I have a pretty sensitive sense of smell, I would say. So it doesn't bother me, and I'm pretty sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah, that would be the only thing that I would think of, obviously you've been using it, so you haven't had any customer complaints saying this item smells or whatnot. No. But yeah, that would be important to know. But really all these tools are they're to help your life. They're help your reselling life, make it easier, make it less time consuming, and there's so many tools out there. You mentioned the box resizer there, you could use just a box cutter, but there's an actual box resizer we use and it really helps, but also buying boxes from stores that are specific sizes. We sell a lot of golf clubs. I've talked about this before. We need 4x4x48 boxes and they're really difficult to find. And we don't want to rely on going to golf stores because they don't always have boxes when we need them. So we buy them from Grainger and we go and pick them up so we don't have to pay for shipping. So we do save quite a bit on boxes. It's an expense. Some of these tools are things that you're going to have to pay for, but you're paying for
once.
Yeah, you're paying for it once and you're just doing it to help your business, whether it's to save time or just to make your business flow better. All right, so the next thing we have is to be organized. And I know you put that's your word for 2024, which I said last year was my word for 2023, but that didn't necessarily happen. I was not as organized as I wanted to be. So I felt like the start of the new year gave me an opportunity to really, start on the right foot, which is the title of this episode. I wanted to make sure that we were setting ourselves up for success. So I want to share how I audited our inventory, because at the beginning of the year, it really is important to know, what do you have for inventory? What do you have that you've already purchased last year? What is listed? What's not listed? Like, that's really important to know, especially for bookkeeping. So the year before, Casey and I went to Seattle. We visited his sister, mom, our nieces. We weren't able to sell during that time. So that was probably a good 2 weeks that we weren't focused on our business. We weren't able to really get a head start on the new year like we did this year. So this year we didn't go to Seattle. We do every other year. We stayed in town. Starting at the end of September, I delisted everything from Poshmark, which I still don't have anything listed. I'll talk about why. Delisted everything from Poshmark, Mercari, and then I also took everything out of List Perfectly. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to have a very accurate inventory count of what we had already listed. Nothing that we had bought that wasn't listed, but what do we have that is listed already on those platforms? We have 61 plastic bins, along with we store inventory at one time in our laundry room, but also in our spare room. So what I did was started at bin number 1. I took everything out of that bin. I looked to see if it was listed on eBay, because I only wanted it on one platform. If it was on eBay, I knew it was either on there or it's not. Like, it was just that simple. Now, if I had kept all the listings up on Poshmark, Mercari, I would have had to then go onto those platforms, go into List Perfectly. I just was like, I need it to be very simple. So I would go to eBay. If those items were on eBay, I would put them in a pile. If they were not, I would put them in a different pile. So what I did was all the things that were listed on eBay, I delisted them. And then I determined, is this item worth relisting again, or should it go to a donation pile? So if it was donated, that would go away. It would go into a certain bin. That was all the inventory that we were no longer wanting to sell. And a lot of those items were things that I discovered were damaged. Maybe something had happened while storing them. They were damaged. They weren't selling for much anymore. We had some items that I had marked down to like $10, where I'm not going to spend my time selling this item. It's not going to give me the profit. It's not going to give me the return on investment I'm looking for. I want to start fresh, and I want to sell things faster and for a higher dollar amount. If I found an item that I wanted to definitely have listed and it met all the criteria, I would then choose sell similar on eBay, and I would look at the photos. How do the photos look? If I was a buyer, would I want to buy that item? And then the title. What were my keywords? Did I need to redo my title? What about the category it was listed in? If I had a pair of men's boots and it's in the category of women's boots, which I did find had happened, how am I going to sell that item if it's in the wrong category? So really looking at that listing and trying to find errors. What about the item specifics, the description? And then also, what did I have it priced at? Was the shipping too high? We found some items that had a $14.99 shipping on it, where I'm like, I wouldn't even buy that with that shipping. So we had a lot of inventory that, yes, it was listed, but there were errors, the photos weren't good, and the price was just honestly too high. So from there, I would have that bin number 1. I would go to the next bin number 2. I would do the same thing with that. And then I would put it in bin number 1. So I was filling up the bins as I went. Does that make sense how I was doing that?
Yeah. You're doing like a full audit, piece by piece, like really digging in deep. And I think that I love that. I think I'm going to take that and do it myself, because I really need to go through every single thing, make sure it's listed, and really dive deep in and make sure that if it is listed, it matches my metrics going forward. And I think that's important too. It's not just like, okay, all the information is great, the title's great, the picture's great, I'm going to relist this now, but does it actually meet the metrics that I want for my business in 2024? Maybe it was okay in like 2022 when you first listed it, but kind of got like pushed aside in 2023, and now it's 2024 and it just doesn't, like, it's not for you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it would be better to donate it and then use that space for another item.
And there were so many items that I would look at and I'm like, if I was walking into a thrift store right now Would I have bought that item? No, I wouldn't even have looked at it. Like I would have saw it and been like, no, I'm not even going to pick it up. I'm not even going to look it up to check comps. I mean, it really helped us know what we have listed. So now I know I can go into eBay, I can sort by start date, and I can see exactly all the inventory that we have. So then I'm able to look and say, because we found items that were listed that we don't even have because they might have been a duplicate listing. Like maybe those got duplicated. But if I had all my inventory scattered on Poshmark, Mercari, how was I going to know what I really have? Because I might see that item listed on Poshmark and how do I know it's not on eBay unless I'm actually looking up that inventory?
Right.
So now what I'm going to do, I went from 61 bins to like 35 bins. So we have 35 bins that are full of listed items. Those are already listed. They're full. I now know I can start at bin 36 and I have all of those bins that are empty and ready for new inventory, ready for fresh inventory that we're listing. And that was how I did it. And I've never gone that in depth in the past, but already the last 31 days, our sales are up 51%.
Wow.
For this year, I mean, it's only first couple weeks of January, our sales in January compared to last January are up 110%.
Oh my God.
And our average sale price is up about 10% as well. So I know that by doing that, it's really helped it by selling similar, then it's a completely fresh new listing. So from here, I'm going to now go back. And it's going to be time consuming, but I'm like, this is how I want to make sure everything is accurate. You know, I have an accurate count on everything. I'm going to import everything into List Perfectly. Then from there, do my cross-posting from List Perfectly to Mercari or Poshmark or both of them. And then everything's going to be fresh. I'm going to be ready for the new year because I did a review video on using List Perfectly for a year, and it doesn't have to be List Perfectly. You guys don't have to use that. You can use Vendoo, you can use Flip, whatever cross-posting service. But what I was finding was I wasn't utilizing that cross-posting service appropriately. I didn't know how to properly delist items. We were having a lot of mistakes, and that was because it was error mistakes. It was my mistake for not going and making sure stuff was delisted. I was assuming that it was happening. I was closing out of browsers early. I wasn't double checking my work. And so I think that's why we had a couple items that sold on multiple platforms, because they weren't taken off those platforms. But now I feel like I think this is going to be our best year yet with reselling. I mean, we were up about 10% last year with our sales, but I feel like everything we're putting in place, we're finally, and I think I said this last year, but no, this time I really mean it. I feel like we've got a lot of things we're putting in place that are going to help us, and it's just going to increase sales.
That's great. So how long did it take you from the time that you started the audit and you're finished now, right?
I have one rack of clothing to go through.
Okay.
Because I had some clothing that I was putting on in our spare closet, just on hangers. That stuff I need to go through. But I started December 20th. I mean, it took a good 4 weeks, I would say, but I wasn't doing it every single day. I would grab let's say I would grab 2 bins and go through it. So I would choose a couple bins each day, but I didn't do it every single day during the week.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's pretty good. So, all right, I'm going to start mine next and then I'll let you guys know how it goes because my sales have been really bad for the first part of this year. I mean, it's January 16th now. We were on vacation from January 2nd until I think like the 9th or 10th or something. That was a whole other issue. Like we got delayed and ended up in Nashville for a couple of days unexpectedly. So because I didn't really know what was going to happen, I left my handling time on eBay where it was, which was like 10 days. I didn't want to have any like late shipping dings or anything like that. So I've changed it now back to what it was. I think I have like 1 day handling time. We'll see. Hopefully things start to pick up. I have a ton of things that are drafted right now on eBay and on Poshmark. So now that like things have settled down, we're back, we're like recuperated, everything's good with the basement finally. Hopefully things will start to get back to normal sales wise, but I think we mentioned it before, but like organized is definitely going to be my word for 2024. There's just too much chaos in my life right now. And I think that comes from having moved too many times in the last few years. Things are just not as organized as they were when I first started my business. And it's kind of driving me crazy. And it's making me not want to spend any time in my business because it's so chaotic and like things are everywhere. And it's overwhelming to me and I don't really know where to start. So I'm just going to start with, I have letters on my bins. So I have like A through Z and then like double A, double B. I'm just going to start with A and like start picking away at it and go from there, because I know that there are things, like you said, that are delisted that should not be delisted, whether that was my error, eBay's error, whatever the case might be. Maybe it sold and then the sale was, whatever the case was, it sold on Poshmark and then was canceled or returned or whatever, you know. I need to go back through every single item and do a deep dive. And also I'm changing my metrics for this year. I've started to sort of think about developing this little formula where you can like plug in numbers and it'll spit out like a result. So if you want to make, it's just going to be in like Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, because you can create the formulas pretty easily. And then once I figure out how I want it and like get it working right, maybe we can share it. But you should be able to plug in like how much profit you want to make, what your average sale price was from the last year, like how many listings you have, whatever, all these like data points. And then it will basically tell you what you need to do going forward, how many listings per day you need to get up if your average sales price stays the same to hit your like goals. I like having stuff like that because it kind of keeps me on track. What else? You mentioned, like getting rid of things that didn't meet your metrics. And I really need to do that. I'm hanging on to things for too long, I found. And something that kind of like clicked for me recently was, and it's not just with reselling, it's with everything. We talked about a couple episodes ago, things that we did in 2023. And I, brought up the fact that I had lost some weight in 2023, but I found that I'm like hanging on to some of my clothes from then. And I don't know why, because I'm not going back to that. So part of it for me, I don't know, like maybe I'm nervous that I'm going to like gain the weight back or something, but I'm not going to let myself get to that point. So I need to like release that stuff and get rid of it, whether it's donating it or putting it in my inventory or whatever. If it meets my metrics, maybe I'll sell it. If it doesn't, then I just need to get out of here. And I found that when you are releasing things that are weighing on you, like weighing on you, or like it feels heavy or like a burden, if you clear that space, if you get rid of the physical item, it allows like more to come in that is meant for you, So I need to go through my closet. It's overflowing with stuff that I haven't worn in a long time and that hopefully I will never wear again. And once I do that, I'm sure that like it's going to create this space for something else to land, if that makes sense. So if you think about it like an airport, planes coming and going, if the runway's full, you can't like have any other planes landing on those runways. You know what I mean? There's no room for them. So you have to release things and let them go. And I'm going to use that like the thought process for my inventory as well. I find that I'm too attached to it. I know what I've paid for things, even if it was years ago. I remember like, oh, I remember the garage sale I bought this from, or the estate sale or whatever. And I'm going to use it as a little experiment. I'm going to use my inventory as an experiment. So I'm going to do the audit. I'm going to go through every single item and I will keep track of how much I'm getting rid of. And I bet that once I get rid of this stuff, like literally clear it out of the house, redonate it, give it away, whatever is going to happen with it, I bet that some opportunity is going to present itself and something else will come in for me. So that's a little woo-woo, Ashley thing for you, guys. Can't let an episode go by without something like that. But it just kind of like, I don't know, that when you were talking about it, is like clearing space for something else to come in. Like if things are too chaotic, too jumbled, there's not any room, like new things can't come in for you. So I hope that makes sense.
Well, no, I've shared how can't use our dining room table because we have nothing but stuff everywhere. We now have room to put the new inventory that that we purchased. And just having those empty bins, it's like a really good feeling. Like, and it's good for both of us, because if Casey wants to list, he knows exactly which bin, because I took the lids off. So if you go out into our garage and you see the shelves with all the bins, if they don't have a lid on it, that's a bin that we can use for new inventory. So it's just a quick system that we have. We also went through our shipping area, and that's another area that I would recommend going through and auditing. How many poly mailers do you have left? Do you need to stock up on any other supplies? A lot of times why we put off certain things like listing and things like that with reselling is because everything is chaotic. There's no organization, there's no flow, there's no system in place. So now we have, nice organized shipping area, and it's good because we share the shipping area with our listing area. So if we have all the stuff that we want to list on the table, where are we going to put the stuff that we need to ship, that we need to prep, that we need to put in a box or a poly mailer? So really organizing that, it's just going to feel so good. It's spending the time. I think we get in the mindset of, I won't make money reselling unless I list. Like everybody pushes, you need to keep listing. You need to list every single day, which you can schedule listings to go every single day. You don't need to physically list every single day. Listing is only a part of reselling. You need to also take the time to spend on other parts of your business, because if you aren't organized, you're not going to be listing as many items as you should be listing.
Yeah. And this is like the best time of year to do it, because we have that like new year, new us mentality already. And if it's slower right now for you, this is the time of year you want to work on like the housekeeping things. You don't want to be trying to do this and doing an inventory audit in the middle of like Q4 next year. You know what I mean? Like that's not the time. You want to be ready to rock and roll well before we get to Q4 in 2024. So this is the best time to kind of go through all of that stuff.
All right. The next thing we have for you, do not compare your reselling business to others. If you're listening to us, your reselling business is going to look completely different. Ashley's business looks completely different than my business. It's easy on social media. You have the people that share their high numbers and successes, and that's great. We all should share successes, but that doesn't mean that that's the success that you should have. Remember, what you see on social media isn't the entire picture. They're sharing their success. You have no idea how much they're paying for items. You don't know the time they're spending, the monthly expenses that they have for certain things. Everyone's in a different situation. You might be reselling to earn just an extra $100 a month. And to you, that's great, because that extra $100 is maybe spending money that you wouldn't normally have. You don't need to be reselling and being this big seller with thousands and thousands of items to pay your bills. A lot of you listening still have a job. You're doing this part-time. You're doing it on the side to have another stream of income. So don't ever compare yourself. Look into your business, figure out what's working for you, what you want, going back to the business plan. What is your plan for this year? Even if this is a hobby for you, maybe you want to sell through that collection of Lego that you have, or maybe you want to sell through all your jewelry that you've made that you want to sell on Etsy. Everyone is in a different situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this really cliche saying, but it's comparison is the thief of joy. And I find that it's really true, though, when you start to play the comparison game, and it kind of sucks the happiness out of whatever you're doing, whether it's, comparing your house to someone else's house, or your business, like you said, or, this person has their kids perfectly dressed every single day, it seems like, and they're never missing a sock, and their socks match, for crying out loud. Like, it just sucks the joy out of everything. So if you can be content and happy with what you have going on and what your business is providing for you and your family and your lifestyle, like that's the best way to go about things, for sure.
And I asked Casey before we started this episode, I'm like, what would be advice you would give somebody on how they can start 2024 on the right foot? And his was, don't compare yourself to others. Put your head down and work in your business, and stop scrolling on social media, which that is very true, because social media platforms are giving you what you want to see. So if you're watching reels about these other resellers going into Goodwill and what they're finding, Instagram's going to continue to show you those reels. And in the end, like, are you really learning anything? If you learn something, that's great. But 9 times out of 10, when I'm scrolling on social media, I didn't learn a darn thing. You know what I did? I wasted my time. Like, that's one thing I want to do this year is less time on social media and more time, instead of scrolling, creating content. Another thing Casey had said was you have to be patient with reselling. And know that if you find a good sell-through rate on eBay and you list an item, you could sit on that item for 90 days and be patient, because reselling doesn't always give you your return on investment right away. It does take time. And with that, it also takes time to build your business. So it's not something that you can just do right away. You have to be patient and you have to put in the effort.
Yep. Absolutely. There's no like overnight success really with this. There's no choice but to put in the work every single day, day in, day out. Just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. All right. The last thing that we have for you guys is to make sure that you continuously are learning this year. So it's so easy to think that you know everything about reselling, everything about your business, whatever. And we feel that when you stop learning, you stop growing. And that's a really easy way to become stagnant. Read, updates on the platforms that you're selling on. If you're starting a new platform, that's like a great way to kind of reinvigorate your reselling business. Is to like, if you've never sold on Amazon, maybe try selling some stuff on Amazon this year. If you've never tried out eBay, try out eBay. It humbles you really quickly when you're trying to learn a new platform or learning a new niche, because you're right back at the beginning when you first started. You're an infant. You don't know anything. You need help. You need someone to ask questions to. It's a good way to like keep things fresh and to keep yourself excited and loving what you're doing.
Yeah, always be learning, listening to podcasts, and really looking at put your energy into stuff where you are learning things. So like I said, with social media, if you find yourself scrolling and you're not really learning from that, then you're wasting your time. If you're listening to a podcast and you're getting information that you can then apply to your business, then you're learning. If you maybe find somebody has a video on YouTube that's talking about a certain topic and you learn something from that, that's worth your time to invest in. That's with any of the platforms. They're always changing. Every single day, Amazon puts out some sort of news that's new. And, you have to stay on top of that stuff if you want to be successful. You don't ever be the person that lists items and leaves it. And then you wonder why you're not getting sales. You're not growing. You're not learning. You're not, there's certain things that you have to then implement. When eBay switched to all those item specifics, yes, that was a pain, but it was something that they were requiring people to do. Make sure that your listings are up to date with the item specifics that they require for those items that you're listing. So those are the things that you do have to spend time on. But when you put in that time, you're going to learn. And in the end, it's just going to help your business. So this was a really good episode, I feel like, for the first one together for 2024. If you guys have any questions about reselling, make sure you leave them in the comments down below. If you're listening on YouTube, we would love to have more members in our Facebook group. We just passed 300 members, which is incredible. We thank everyone who has joined. And we'll keep bringing you guys good information about reselling. And we're looking to get a lot more guests on for 2024.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
Anything we mentioned in this episode will be linked down below in the show notes or description down below.
Be sure to share this episode with anyone you think it will help and follow us on social media at P2D Podcast.
Thanks again for listening. Keep working towards that Daycheck.